would wear them. I was like the same way with my cleats. I hated parting way with my cleats. You should have seen. I wonder if I have pictures.
Oh
I'll
my
probably find
gosh.
them. I had like my cleats taped together for what we were like in the ACC tournament, and my cleats were like literally falling apart. And I was like, I don't want to change them, so I
Yeah, we
taped
gotta
them
find a
together
picture.
basically. I know,
She
and I would do
also
that with
would
every.
never take them off. Like, not only did you wear these
Yeah.
same pair of cleats for so long, you would never take them off, so they smelled bad. I'm sorry, and you'd wear them in the house, and you'd leave them outside your room because they smelled bad.
Yeah, I was gonna put them in my room.
The Meg Show is on full display in the dome. Let's go! The Megan to Megan Show continues. Carney to Tyrell.
Hey guys, welcome to the Meg Show. We are back after week 1 of NCAA Women Lacrosse, and what a week that we just watched. From start to finish, all around, we saw some great lacrosse. We saw some teams kind of brushing off that first week rust, and now let's get into it and kind of talk about it. So, what was some things that you kind of saw over the past weekend, Meg?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there was quite a few upsets, especially in the top 5 rankings. So we saw that shake out a little bit as the rankings came out today, being Monday. I think a few others we saw very close games. Saw some go to overtime. We saw a lot of 1 point games, a lot of 1 point games, and then we also saw some like blowouts. I think Michigan beat Jacksonville 20-1 or something like that.
Yeah, 19 to 1,
19.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think we saw all across the board a great first weekend of college lacrosse. It's only going to get better from here. But yeah, we can go ahead, dive a little deeper into sort of the games that we had picked as the top games for last week, how those came or how those turned out, and then I guess just a few key players that stood out from those games and just all across the board.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get into it. That first game that we picked that we were interested in watching last week was Albany versus Hopkins. I think both our picks were right for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, both our picks were right for that one. And there were some standout plays, some standout players, and something that completely went over our heads last week was
hmm
Madison Doucette is back playing college lacrosse. She was an absolutely amazing goalie out at Northwestern. And then after her 4 years, she took some time. She's back. Now she's playing in the Blue Jay uniform out at Hopkins. And she she did what she normally does. She
She
has
went off.
great saves. Yeah, great saves. Her clears were accurate. They were very quick getting the ball out of her stick so they can transition up the field, which I think was a strength that we saw with that Hopkins game was them pushing transition. I would have liked to see them finish more effectively in their transitions though, because they had that push, but they couldn't really get that final piece to get the ball in the back of the net. But it was great to see Madison back and playing. I think we've both played with her before. Great teammate,
Yep.
great person. So definitely exciting to see her back playing lacrosse again.
Yeah, she did not skip a beat. Taking a year off, and then she came back, had 11 saves, 8 ground balls. So not a bad day for her. But yeah, she did very well for taking a year off. Didn't really miss a beat there.
Yeah, and then on the other side from Hopkins, you have Katie Pascal. But no matter what, she is a stud for the Great Danes. She played so well. She was all over the field. Hustle plays were huge for her. One of the cause turnovers that she had, she came down from the offensive side for her, was coming down the field, got back into her defensive end, got a back check, got the ball back. That was absolutely all hustle, very gritty play of her. She ended up having 3 goals, 4 assists, and 6 draw controls. So she really is such a key component for this Albany team. So seeing her grow into her season, I'm so excited to see what she's going to do for Hopkins and how Hopkins is going to react with her.
For sure. A few things to point out from that game as well. Hopkins had 4 cards, ended the third. 4 minutes left. They're full serve. So if a team scores, basically what that means for any new listeners, if a team scores, that penalty is non-releasable. They have to serve the full 2 minutes. So that definitely can hurt you when you're playing a game to have to serve those full 2 minutes. That gives the other team a big opportunity to sort of convert on those, take advantage of the man up and put the ball away. Probably get at least 2 goals out of that. So yeah, just being something to be aware of for Hopkins and just overall. I think with the rule changes as well, that probably goes hand in hand with the cards. Just knowing that the refs are probably watching that a little bit more this year. It got a little out of control last year, I think. But yeah, Hopkins with 4 cards, end of the third, is definitely not going to help them later on down the road.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And just to kind of spin off that when it comes to the rules, something that I noticed just in the Hopkins Albany game, which wasn't the same for all the other games, but a lot of the players when they were riding, they were kind of just keeping their stick up in the air, kind of looking for those knockdowns opposed to putting pressure on those trying to clear the ball. So I thought that was kind of an interesting look, which made me curious to see what other teams were going to do as well. And then just kind of on like the playing side, Albany's defense looked pretty good. They had the pressure on the ball. They made it difficult for her to make the pass or find the open person. They did let some Hopkins players slip inside, but Hopkins offense is so good at cutting. So that's going to happen. It's sports, right? People are going to get open. So with that, the defense for Albany looked good. I think on their other side, their offense could have been a little bit more aggressive towards the cage with that defense that Hopkins was playing. So kind of just observations, things to keep in mind. And then kind of in the end there, it was in the last 4 minutes, it was 14-10, and that's kind of how the game played out. But overall, it was a solid first game to have to watch from this past weekend. And both of those teams looked so good already in week 1. So I'm going to be excited to see what they do for the rest of the season.
Yeah, for sure. From there, I think we can move on to Navy Duke. We had Navy come out on top 10-9 against Duke at Navy. What an awesome game. That was so fun to watch. It came down to the very last minute. Duke had the ball in their end. Just unfortunately had an overthrow. Went over the girl's head, went out of bounds, lost the ball. So that was a little tough of a turnover to have right there at the very end. That could have helped convert and tie the game up. So that definitely wasn't ideal for them, obviously. But shout out to Navy for holding on to that and finishing the game out on top.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Meg and I both had Duke picked for winning that game.
Yeah, I think a lot of our picks were a little wrong.
Yeah, I think we had a tough week, but it was week 1.
Why are you gonna listen to us?
I'm gonna use excuses that we didn't have any prior knowledge of what these teams looked like, but it's all fun and games, right? So with that, I thought that Navy's zone that they ran, they did a really good job of picking up people that were kind of circling around in the 8 with having that rover low, kind of just watching the middle the whole time. It makes it easy for the defense to pick up people if they're communicating well. Otherwise, if you don't communicate well, people just kind of slip in the middle there. But I thought that Navy's defense did a good job with that. On the other side, I think Duke's offense made it a little bit too easy for the defense to kind of pick them up. I think maybe there was some miscommunications, but a lot of the cuts that from watching it, a lot of the cuts that Duke was running, they were sending 2 or 3 girls all running that same kind of route throughout the 8. So that kind of that'll create too much clogging, takes up too much space. It makes one defender being able to play 3 girls. So kind of if they can work on those timings of those cuts a little bit, I think they're going to find a lot more success going through the middle of the 8 like that. And then also standout was the Navy goalie, freshman Giglio. She had 6 saves.
That's an awesome last name.
It just made like giggles. Giglio. And I hope I'm saying that right. But 6 saves, and to have this Duke offense that has some veteran players that are known to be sharpshooters, basically, to be able to hold that offense to under 10 goals is so impressive on the defense's end and also on the goalie's end. Your first college game, you're coming in, you're playing an ACC team. That's some people, it could be intimidating, could be nerve-wracking, but she looked poised in there. And as a freshman too, that's huge for her confidence, for, the team to really get behind that. So awesome
Yeah.
job on her part. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I think another standout on Duke's end, Katie DeSimone she led the way with 3 goals. Olivia Carter had 2 goals. Katie DeSimone also this past weekend, she had 200 career points. She is now the 11th player in program history to record 200 career points, also tying an individual single game points record with 11. She had 7 goals, 4 assists in the Villanova game. So that was awesome weekend for her. Unfortunately, they came out with the loss against the Navy, but she put up 3 goals. But yeah, Olivia Carter had 2 goals. Duke's comeback was just a little too late. Slow game for both teams. I think that's a common theme that we at least noticed in a few of the games this past weekend, just being the first game of the season, just getting all their kinks out, shaking up the dust. But unfortunately, they're a little slow for both of them, honestly, but Duke just couldn't pull it together at the end.
Yeah, that was kind of a common theme, but I also think that's just like what you're going to get kind of within that first week is you're going to see it's real competition. You're playing for real wins and losses, right? So it's going to have a different effect. I mean, for our first games this season when we played, I know it was like, oh, like finally back out here, but it's also kind of that adjustment. We're not playing each other. We're playing other people that we haven't seen in a year at that point. So it's definitely shake off the dust a little bit, but from what we're seeing, the dust will be shaken off pretty quickly, I think.
For sure. I also think something to point out too, being the first game of the weekend or of the season, it's just like the chemistry. Especially we have a lot of freshmen I noticed that are playing. Like that takes a while to build chemistry. It takes years. It takes multiple seasons. It doesn't come just from one fall ball with each other, playing against each other. So that's going to be something we'll start to notice, and that will start to build as the season goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. The underclassmen across the board, from what we've seen, are absolutely crushing it. And that that is what we saw when this next game, USC versus Army, their freshman Anna Reagan on the draw had 11 draw controls and basically led the way for USC on that draw circle, because in lacrosse, the draw, it's really, really an important, a key aspect of the game. The more draws you win, obviously, the more possession you have. So to be able to kind of win the draw circle game within the game itself definitely puts you in a better position to actually win the entire game. So for her, having those 11 draw controls, freshmen coming in, so huge, so awesome. So that was really exciting to see by her.
Yeah, definitely. Another standout from USC is Ella Haney. Heaney, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. She had 6 goals on the weekend. That is an awesome day for her. Let's see, she scored 6 goals in the opening game to knock off 15 Army. So they come out on top with a win. She's got 6 goals. It is new career high for her and 100th career goal as well. So she had a great start to her season.
Yeah, Ella Heaney, also Long Island native, from Garden City. Shout out the Heenies. Yeah, no, I thought USC, that game, it was...
Did we both pick Army?
Yeah, we both picked Army for that one.
Wrong again.
Wrong again, but that was an exciting game to watch. I think I was really excited to watch Bridget Duffy. She, for those who don't know her, she is a superstar lacrosse player and also plays soccer at Army. So she is probably one of the busiest people in the NCAA right now. And she did amazing. She had 4 draw controls, 4 points, 2 caused turnovers, and 4 ground balls. She was just kind of everywhere, doing everything for this team. So watching her back in action was a lot of fun. But for both teams, for that game, I'm pretty sure they ended the first quarter and it was 2-2. So that was kind of a slow start offensively, kind of shaking that off, getting into the groove, clicking on offense. Yeah, I just thought they started off slow, and then for those teams in the fourth quarter, like Meg was saying for USC, like that was explosive for them. They needed that to push through to get that win. So obviously we were wrong with our end prediction, but
I was
it
kind
was
of
still
disappointed in Army. Very happy for USC. Obviously, that's awesome. I want both those teams to do well. Asa Goldstock, former teammate of both Meg and I, played with her for a few years, so it's fun to see them doing well out there, out on the West Coast. So definitely would love for both those teams to do well. But when they're playing each other, only one of them can.
That's how it goes. The sad truth. From there, another game that we picked was Syracuse Northwestern. Once again, we were wrong. We picked Syracuse. We picked
Honestly.
Syracuse. However, top 5 matchup, those games can kind of go either way. However, the way that game started, backtrack actually, fortunately for us, we had the opportunity to get to Chicago to watch the girls play in person, kind of get a feel for both of those teams who are going to be such fierce competitors going down the season, and then also get a feel for the new rules, see how people are kind of adjusting and acclimating with that. But from the start, so the end of the first quarter, it was 8-2.
8-2, yeah.
Northwestern,
I was a
yeah.
little
So
nervous.
definitely was like OMG for a little bit, but but they
OMG.
they pulled it together. Things were clicking. Things started getting back into motion. We kind of were struggling a little bit on that draw front. How I was talking about that with USC and Army. The draw really is so important. And the percentage of wins for between Syracuse and Northwestern was, if I had to like put like a kind of percentage on it, I would say 90% of the draws were won by Northwestern and 10% were won by Cuse.
Mm-hmm.
If you would agree with that percentage, I could.
Yeah.
Something
So
like that.
so I just looked it up. It was 24-13. So just about.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it was, but
So
it was very glaring in that first half that Cuse, they didn't have the ball. It was all defense.
It was a lot of like 50-50 draws too. I feel like there was a few on both sides here and there that was a clean win. But a lot of it was 50-50, which is like that stat has to be way closer for a 50-50 fight majority of the time for the draw. Like you got to have one girl going up, two girls going down, whatever it is. You got to have everyone going towards the ball. You got to have that box out. And so that's what can be frustrating about the draw is like, especially the person taking the draw. It's not like they're clean. They're not cleanly beating them. So it's a whole team effort. It's all three of them. But yeah, 24-13. I do agree. I think it felt a little worse. Being there, I feel like Northwestern won more than 24. But yeah, you're not gonna win a game with that stat, unfortunately. If you do, that's very impressive. That would be awesome. But that will be very hard to do. I will tell you that. Possession is so crucial in lacrosse. So being able to get that draw off the bat is very, very important.
Yeah, especially with that stat, it's hard to win. And it's even harder when you have the likes of Izzy Skane and Erin Kuykendall on the receiving end of that. Those two combined for 16 points on the day. Erin Kuykendall absolutely popped off. And then someone else that last year came in to Northwestern. Now she's a sophomore, Madison Taylor, lefty attacker. She, from her freshman first game, made her presence known. And I think we're going to continue to see that as the season goes on. And as she kind of keeps growing into her spot, I think her presence is demanding. If she's out there, she has the ball, she's someone that you want to be concerned with because she shoots very, very well and she gets a lot of opportunities. So for her to she had 4 goals, 2 assists, and then was also on the draw circle too. So she's doing a lot to help out this offense and this team. So that was, as much as it was like, oh no, we lost, it was really fun to watch that team out there playing.
Yeah. A few others some stats that stood out from that game. Delaney Schweitzer, Syracuse goalie, saw 42 shots. That is
in case you
insane.
don't know, that is a lot of shots. That is a lot of shots. And, some of them were – the thing about Delaney is if she gets a point-blank shot, there's a high likely chance that she will save it. And it will be so absurd because you could be standing on the doorstep right on top of the crease, shoot it, and, it will hit her or something. Practicing against that was so annoying. But, she's good at it. So she had as much as, there was that, they lost, but her stat of how many shots she saw was crazy.
Yeah, that was insane. A few others standouts from the Syracuse side. We mentioned Aaron and Izzy for Northwestern and Madison Taylor, but for Syracuse, although they lost, Olivia Adamson had 6 goals. She's just a junior. She started to put the team on her back at the very end. 6 goals on 7 shots. That is an amazing shooting percentage, amazing day. So I would love that stat. She also had 2 caused turnovers. And 1 draw control. So she as well was sort of all over. She was helping out in the draw when needed to give Kate a little bit of a break and reset. So she was definitely crucial in that aspect. Delaney Schweitzer, like we mentioned, 42 shots. Awesome day for her. And then Katie Gooddale had 4 draw controls, 3 caused turnovers. She is, I know this, I'm not being biased. She is so good. She is so fun to play with. And having her down there on that defensive side is just the best thing ever. So her, and then she's got a freshman that she plays just like her. Literally demeanor, fundamental skill. Casey Benoit at Syracuse is a freshman. She was face guarding Izzy Skane at one point during the game. Played amazing. I told her after the game, I was like, I might be your biggest fan. I want your autograph. You're so good, and you're just a freshman. That was your first game against the defending national champions. So shout out to her. That was awesome. Love seeing that for Syracuse and Coach Stifo down on her defensive end. And then Nat Smith went off towards the end. She has such a great, why not mindset. Whenever it's needed, she goes hard. She dodges very hard, and she'll put the ball away. She shoots very hard. So yeah, seeing her sort of step up when it's needed throughout the game was good for her. But yeah, overall, Syracuse just adjusted and started clicking a little too late. I think Meg and I both mentioned after the game that the first quarter was the definition of getting the kinks out and shaking the dust off. There just wasn't much connecting there. It was just a slow start for them. It was 8-2, like Meg said. So that was definitely a slow start. I think you get rid of that first quarter, it's a whole different ballgame, but you can't do that. So you got to play good for all 60 minutes. And then lastly, the green cards. I don't know if it was just because we were there in person, so we really noticed it, but it seems like it is not going as well as everyone thought it would be, making this rule. Seems like on Twitter, everyone is also a little annoyed by it, but there's 14 in that game. That is so much stopping, man up, man down. I think too, I was saying, yeah, on offense, I would love that because that's a minute of man up. You should be able to convert and score on that.
That's a goal.
In those minutes. Yeah, that should be an automatic goal. Your man up should be able to go 9 out of 10, if not 10 for 10. You should be able to convert on those. But it's so annoying. It just stops the game. There's no transition. You got to wait. Sometimes the refs weren't even ready to call it, forgot about the rule. And the players are like, hello, that's a green card. Take them off the field. So now we're waiting even longer. I don't know. I did not like it. I'll make that very clear. I was not a fan. It just stops the game so much. I thought we wanted to make this faster and less whistles, but I think that did the opposite. I don't know.
Yeah, I have to agree with Meg. Definitely not a fan of this green card. I think I understand the safety purpose of it. I do understand that. But I do think that there's a better way to go about it. I don't think that – because it's not like empties and stuff, that just kind of goes. But if there's a push or something, that's going to be a green card. I just think there should be a level to the green card almost maybe where, if you're cross-checking somebody in the back, that's a green card, sure. But I think kind of not the less –
an empty stick check? That's just
that one –
a whistle, pick up the ball, and keep going.
Yeah, I just think that just needs to be regulated a little bit more, because having 14 green cards, that's 14 man ups, man downs. And sometimes it's 2 green cards to happen or something, or someone gets a yellow, and then you're playing 7-on-5. And on offense, that's amazing because, wow, you have 2 open people. How cool. But if you're a fan or a spectator and you're watching consistent, like 7-on-6, 7-on-5 play, you like that's not what you want to see, really, because you come to watch a full game 7-on-7. You want to see everyone play each other, but to have so many people just sitting out, or it just seems like it took up too much time, and you're kind of taking away from the beauty of watching an offense work or watching a defense work. So we weren't fans of it, and if you were there, you probably heard it. But I do understand the safety part of it. However, I just think there's a better way to go about it than what they've chosen to do.
Yeah, I think one thing that is interesting is, well, one, I think teams should just spend an hour a day at practice practicing man up. Like that should be so automatic. I will say, I don't want to bash on anyone at Syracuse or Kayla. Like they all did a great job, but I do think we could have converted a little bit more on man up. I think there's times where maybe it's just there's not much chemistry yet. It was a pretty new man up team out there. Had a few new players. And so maybe there just isn't that chemistry yet. First game, I don't know, but I would like to see, we practiced it a bunch all the time. So I feel like that should be more automatic. Another thing is I had sent to Meg last week, I think it was, Deemer Class tweeted about if the game is close at the end and you're playing keep away basically, why not just keep it in between the 30s and then every foul you're man up? Like just, I mean, all you gotta do is protect your stick and run, and you're gonna get a foul. They're gonna blow the whistle.
At some point, they're gonna, like, someone's gonna hit you the wrong way, and it's gonna look bad. Even if it's not that big of a hit, it looks worse sometimes. That's like that flop rule where they're trying to catch that, I guess. But I think if that came down to it, the ref's gonna call the push, and you're gonna get a green card, and that could end up being like 7-on-4 at that point, like while the game's at the end. So I thought that was a really good point that he brought up, and I think it could bring a lot of interesting discussion into it, into the rule, and hopefully other people think about this who are in higher positions than I to figure out what to do with this.
To make the rule change, but if it was in our hands, you know what we would be doing. So fortunately, I don't know who you contact about that, but
yeah, someone else has to handle it. But okay. But it's not just the Syracuse Northwestern game we saw this in. We saw it in every game that played out. We saw green cards and yellow cards combined. So it's definitely different, definitely interesting. And hopefully they figure this out for the game. Make it better. The other game that we were looking at was Loyola, Florida, which it shocked me, to be honest with you. For the first 3 quarters of that game, it was exactly what I expected. There was obviously some shaking the rust off and all that stuff, but those 2 teams, like when we would play, if we were playing Florida, we were playing Loyola, those 2 teams are gritty and they are physical, and they're going to come at you like you've got a huge target on your back. And that's just how they play, and they really buy into that. And I think that those 2 teams going together week 1 like that was such an awesome pick, or such an awesome scheduling decision by those coaches. So for 3 quarters, it was a very, very close game. On both ends, we were seeing stops, some turnovers, some good goals, obviously. But, I mean, Loyola just took off in that 3rd quarter. They had 8 goals in the 3rd, which, if you allow a team to put 8 goals on you in the 3rd quarter, that is so hard to come back and win from. If you go down 8 goals in like the 1st quarter or the 2nd quarter, not saying it's like easier to dig yourself out of that, but it's a lot more likely that you could end up winning that game. But if you let someone put up 8 goals on you in the 3rd, coming back from that, got to be near impossible. I just don't see crawling out of a hole of 8 goals deep.
Yeah, 8 goals in a quarter. That's a lot. Especially in the third. It's not like it was a first and oh surprise, we got this player and
Yeah,
this
no,
player
they
that are really
just
good. It's like you're through first half and you don't have it figured out. Now they're putting up 8 goals on you. That's a little tough of a comeback.
yeah, definitely. And leading the charge of the scoring was Georgia Latch for Loyola. She had 6
She
goals
went
in this
off.
game. Literally went off. And I was talking to Meg about this. I'm so curious. Well, now I was so curious what year she was in, because I feel like on our scout, she was on the scout since we were freshmen, I
Yeah.
think. Or maybe not, but I feel like I've always seen her name. And then when I saw her again on the Loyola roster for the game, I was like, what? Like, I didn't understand it, but happy for her. So amazing. 6 goals. That's so huge.
Yeah.
And then obviously they have Sydney Black as well, who is so fast, so shifty, such a dangerous weapon to have on
She is
offense. She
so
gets the
good.
goal. Gets the goal. She's good at shooting. Her shooting percentage is probably pretty good. And she put up 5 goals as well, or 4 goals. 4 goals. She had 4 goals. But both of those two on offense for a combined day like that is what you need, especially against a top 10 opponent that you're going to face.
Yeah, for sure. On the Florida side, Maggie Hall had 5 goals. She had a great start to opening weekend, and then again, penalties and turnovers are killer. You're not gonna. It's just gonna be very hard to win a game. You're making it harder on yourselves. Overall, both teams, but yeah, I think Georgia Latch, like Meg said, was a huge difference maker for this game. She had 6 goals. She also had 3 assists and 4 draw controls. So again, she's sort of doing it all over the field. And then yeah, I think Sarah Falk got her first Gator goal. So that was awesome for her. Welcome to the Florida Gators.
Yeah. On top of that, too, Hannah Heller was down there on defense. And then someone who was a little quiet, I thought, for Florida, who I was not expecting, but was thinking I was going to hear more of, was Danielle Pavanelli. She was in the first and then kind of quiet. She had a shot on net, but I think whether it's the first game or the way Loyola played her, I think, they really shut her down within that first that I saw. So with that, 8 goals in the third for Loyola. Loyola wins the draw control game. It's tough for Florida to kind of come back from that. But with that said, it's also week 1. So everything that we say right now can be taken with kind of a grain of salt, because there is so much more lacrosse to get played. And now people have film to watch. So you're going to see even better lacrosse in the upcoming weeks. But I think for Loyola Florida, that was definitely an exciting game. Fourth quarter, Loyola ended up pulling away. But it'd be cool to see this team in a rematch down the line, I think. They'd be fun to watch come playoff time.
I agree. Another game, UNC, JMU, one that we did not put on our week 1 picks. Honestly, thought UNC would handle them, but they proved us wrong. They also, it was released last week that they are missing they're missing 3 players. I think they handled it pretty well for the first game. I know they lost, but maybe that's why. I don't know. Maybe not, but I think they handled it pretty well.
Yeah, the 3 players, so unfortunate. So sorry to hear about that. That's so tough. It never really gets easier. But those 3 players, the 2 of them were key components to the defense and the offense. So to have those strong presences missing, I think obviously you're going to see a shift there. And then that freshman that was coming in was poised to be a very, very good player. So she's going to be sitting this one out, but I'm sure she'll be back, and the other 2 will be as well. But I think the cool thing about UNC, or like the special thing about UNC that we did see is, they recruit the best of the best that go to UNC. So when you have those key players kind of go down or kind of, they can't play, there's people that can step up and kind of fill that role and step into it to really help them out. So I think with this JMU UNC game, you have a JMU team who's got veterans kind of across the field, definitely on offense. And then, to for UNC, yeah, they're a little bit young. They're kind of in that sophomore to junior range. We got obviously Caitlin Wurzberger, who's a senior now, but I think their team compared to JMU is a little bit younger, which I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure. And I think with that kind of matchup, and especially with UNC JMU, they play each other every year, the first game of the season. And like the last time that UNC lost to JMU was in 2018. So for JMU, like this has probably been a game on their calendar that they're marking. Obviously, it's the first game, but I think with that, it's just a little bit more intense.
Yeah. All across the board, though, it was evenly matched. Looking at the stats, I think JMU was just a little bit more even and balanced, consistent throughout the game. They're scoring 4 or 5 a quarter, where UNC had a big second quarter with 7 goals. But JMU had 32 shots, UNC had 31 shots. JMU had 11 turnovers, UNC had 12 turnovers. JMU had 7 caused turnovers, UNC had 7 caused turnovers. JMU had 18 draw controls, UNC had 22 draw controls. JMU had 5 free position shots, and UNC had 2. And then JMU 13 ground balls, UNC 12. That's as close as it can get. That's pretty even. Obviously, went to overtime. JMU wins. I would love to know if the play that she scored off of is what was drawn up. I feel like she shot that ball like outside the 8-meter. I mean, hey, it went in, it worked, but I was watching that like that was crazy. That would be a 2-pointer.
That would be a 2-pointer. But no, I agree. I'm also curious if that was the play they drew up.
I need to know.
Because that's like also so funny. Like something like when you come out of like that timeout in overtime or something and they drew something up
Yeah.
and then whatever happens and it either looks good or you're like, wow, like that was crazy how that just happened. That was one of those, wow, that was crazy that just happened kind of moments. But it worked out in her favor. They got the win, huge for them. And with that win, they bumped up. They
Yeah.
bumped up in the charts. They are now currently ranked
Interesting.
3. Currently ranked 3. I think that win, you get that rank, you get that bump. So I'm curious to see kind of as they move along through the season, how that keeps up. Are they going to move up? Are they going to go back down? I don't know. It's a little too early to tell, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think moving to 3 is interesting. Everyone has their own thoughts. But I'm curious as they start to go farther into their schedule, maybe play a little bit harder teams. It doesn't help North Carolina lost those players. But looking at JMU's schedule, I think if they're ranked 3, their next top matchup might not be till they play Maryland in March. Looking at their schedule, they should be able to handle the upcoming games they have if they're ranked 3 and beating UNC, Hopkins, maybe Florida later on. But other than that, they got a pretty nice schedule.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see when that time comes. But awesome win for them. Huge, huge way to start the season on that high note. So excited to see how they do. And with Isabel Peterson, she's the returning Tewaaraton finalist from JMU. Massive game. She is so dominant on the draw, on offense. She just has a way. She really can get to the cage. So
She's very good.
She's only going to get better. So I'm excited for her.
All right, last one of the weekend to finish this off, UVA Stanford. Stanford won the first half, UVA won the second half, UVA won the game. It was 5-3 Stanford at half. The weather, it was downpouring. Meg, remember
Hey,
when
the
we played at
girls,
UVA?
and it was
Remember? Yeah.
it was snowing and it was a
It was
blizzard. Yeah, I do remember that. Oh my
freaking
God.
cold as we're playing on this field right next to this massive indoor facility. Obviously, it's like footballs. I guess they can't play in there, but I've only seen games at UVA and they look miserable. They look very, very cold. But yeah,
Yeah, but it
weather was
was
downpouring.
downpouring.
A few other standouts from that game. Annabelle Frisk looked amazing, working the draw. I unfortunately only caught the little bit of the end of the game. When I did tune in, she was winning. When I saw, they just came up short a little bit late. So unfortunately, UVA came out on top. UVA had a lot of movement on offense. They moved the ball quickly around the 8. I think with Morgan Schwab, she was pretty quiet, but she does hang out back there at X, and she's pretty good at moving the ball through X. So I think she can definitely make a little bit more of an impact in these coming games. But other than that,
Yeah, I'm going to keep with my underclassmen theme here. Their goalie, Mel Josephson, she's a sophomore, not a freshman, but underclassman. She stood on her head in that second half, and especially in those last few minutes, she had these 2 saves that were so clutch to secure that win for UVA. Overall in that game, she had 12 saves, and for your first career start, playing against a really good Stanford team, I think it doesn't really get much better than that for her. And she was such a little ball of energy. Anytime that the camera would kind of turn towards her and there was music playing during the timeout, she was bopping her head around, like dancing, singing. And at one point, when she was walking back out on the field, she was standing in her crease, and I don't even remember what song it was, but she like flipped over her stick and just started like singing into the microphone. So funny. Looks like she has a great personality. So she's someone I can get behind, rooting for her. So I actually picked UVA to win the game. So I win this one.
I
But
was wrong.
yeah, no. Meg was wrong. So but definitely an exciting game for them. Like Meg said, Annabelle Frisk was doing great on the draw. She's very, very good at it. It looked like she was winning a lot of them with just such ease. So when you have a draw person like that on your team who you can put that confidence in, that's so huge, especially moving forward. But with those picks, that was week 1. That was what we were watching. That was as good
It was a great
as
week.
all I could have hoped for, really. So
Yeah.
congrats to all the teams. Welcome back to NCAA lacrosse. And here's to week 2 coming up already. We're already in it.
Already here. Yeah, week 2, a few games that we picked for week 2 and a few to watch that we think are going to be the top matchups. Georgetown at Towson at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. And then we have Cal at Lemoyne. For those that aren't too familiar, maybe don't follow lacrosse, just starting to follow the sport, Lemoyne was originally used to be Division 2. And so just this past summer, like last season of this season, they have now moved to D1. So this, I'm very interested to see how this goes for them, see where they sort of fall against all these other teams. And
Yeah,
then,
I mean, I just want to say something about Lemoyne. Lemoyne is coached very well. We would play them in fall ball, and they're an aggressive team. So to see them transition from D2 to D1, curious to see how it goes. We've had a couple teams do that in recent years, and I think it's a little bit of an adjustment, but things fall right into place. So can't wait to watch them. Definitely going to be an exciting thing to tune into.
Yep. So we have Cal at Lemoyne on Thursday at 1 p.m. Another good matchup will be Pitt at Arizona State. That's going to be at 8 p.m. On Thursday. And then a few others that we decided that could be a good matchup are Northwestern at Notre Dame. That's at 7:30 Eastern on Friday. And then we have Florida's going to be at UNC at 11 o'clock.
And we've also got Cuse playing Maryland in the Dome for their Dome opener.
Yes, we do have Cuse.
That'll be a fun game to watch. A lot of high energy there for sure.
Nothing like the home opener in the Dome.
Nothing like it.
And then to finish it, Denver at Michigan at 12 o'clock.
So with week 2, the rankings, I thought it made sense for the most part looking at it. Top 10 kind of stayed the same a little bit. You didn't really see too much movement in there. We saw the JMU flip with UNC. So that was really all that moved, I would say. We had Michigan enter the top 10, however, and Florida drop down 12.
So if you don't follow us on Instagram, first of all, make sure you do that. But second of all, I did put a story up today with the new ranking after week 1 to see if anyone had any opinions, hot takes, see sort of what the feel was. So a few of the responses that we got, I'll just go through them quickly. One, Meg did not submit this, but one girl said Syracuse needs to be placed higher. Another said shocked Stanford isn't on there. They almost beat UVA. True, not a bad point.
That's a good point to bring up, definitely.
Another girl says that we deserve a JMU BC matchup. I agree.
That would be a very, very good game to watch. That would be fun.
Another was loving Loyola right now and where they're ranked. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think if there's a team to kind of be afraid of a little bit, I would say Loyola. They, like I said, they're an aggressive team. They've got a lot of talented players, and I think going up against them, it could kind of turn into anyone's game. So I also am loving their team right now, and I think where they're ranked, I think they're only going to go up, to be honest with you. I don't see them going down, so I agree with that.
A few others. Q score was a pleasant surprise. All right.
Yep.
Another was Albany should be ranked higher. Hopkins barely beat Albany and just got by Siena. Another one said it was absolutely spot on. So she's happy.
Thanks, girl. Or
then,
guy. Or person.
The last few, how is UConn up there? They haven't played. Not sure why JMU jumped over Denver. UNC would be number 1 if Brooklyn and Chloe Humphrey were not injured. I don't like having 5 different rankings, all different. I agree. Why are there so many different rankings and why are they all different?
When we were playing that actually used to confuse me.
Yeah.
But now I know. But it used to be very confusing because I'd be like, why are we ranked this here, but this here? But everyone has their own opinions. So
for those of you that don't know, there's a coaches poll, there's a media poll. I don't know. Inside Lacrosse has one. US Lacrosse has one. Just depends.
You could start your own if you want.
Yeah. Maybe we should do that. Should we start our own ranking?
Probably, but I just agree with a lot of this.
And then lastly, someone said that JMU at 3 is whack. I don't know.
I mean, it's deserved almost at that point, but then you look at Denver, who also won, so maybe it could have been like bump Denver to 3, put JMU at 4. That would be like the only other argument I could see with that, just based off it's been one game, but you take down the number 3 team. I understand the flip.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a good recap of last week's games, looking ahead at next week's games and the rankings. And then from here, we can just sort of talk about a few different fun things. We put out a link today for questions. We want you guys to be able to ask us whatever you want. We can answer on the podcast, lacrosse or non-lacrosse related, literally anything. What do we do outside lacrosse? What was our favorite restaurant in Syracuse? How do we get into lacrosse? Whatever it is.
We want to hear it. We want to hear it. We want to hear from you guys.
Yeah. We want to hear it. So just a few that we got today. The first one that we'll dive into is, how has the transition been leaving college athletics? Something that isn't talked about enough for the struggle of identity and purpose after playing sports at such a high level. Can you share your experience?
It's kind of like we were saying last episode. It's very, very weird because not only are you done with college, you're also done being an athlete. So, and majority of your life, if you've played a college sport, you've probably been playing sports since you were like able to walk. So your whole life, you went through school, your friends all know you as like an athlete, it's just something that's kind of ingrained into you. So when that stops, it's kind of like, I was talking to Meg and Tessa, one of our roommates and teammates, about this. I had such a struggle of hobbies. Like, I literally would go to school, I would play lacrosse, I'd hang out with my friends, And that was really it. And I was coming to the end of my career and I was like, I don't have any hobbies. What am I going to do?
You had a hobby identity crisis.
I went through, it was really, I was so concerned. Like, I would come home from class and I'd be like, guys, I was sitting in class today. It was like a 3-hour lecture. Sucked. But I'd come home, I'm like, I don't have any hobbies. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, in my free time, what am I going to do? Because also, not used to having any free time. They're like, your schedule was always booked, whether it was in college or prior to college. If you're like even just leaving high school and you're done with sports there, not following through to college, you still lose that piece of yourself. And then you're like, gotta figure out what to do at your time. So it's definitely difficult. I would say it kind of took me a little while to kind of put things together after I was done as far as hobby wise. But it's not like I was obviously sad that I was done too, but I was also kind of happy and excited to get to this next chapter. So it's kind of a perspective, the way you look at it. You can be like, oh my God, who am I? Or you can be like, this is my next part of my life. This is who I want to be. And you can kind of go any direction with it. So as much as it's a little scary and it takes some time to get used to, it gets really exciting when you get over that point.
Yeah, I think the two biggest things for me is one, like routine. I love having a routine. I love being in a routine, and that's pretty easy to do when you're in college playing a sport because like they're building your schedule for you. You know when your classes are, you know when your practice is, you know when your lift is, you know when your film is, you know when your treatment is. It is all built out for you. Um, and so all you gotta do is just show up. So that's pretty nice. I think now not having someone like work us out, like having a choice, do I want to go to the gym or not? Like building that, like making a routine, I guess. Now figuring out, okay, well, I have work from this time to this time, and then I have this and this, whatever it is, like trying to make that new routine has been the hardest for me. And then another thing that we were talking about this past weekend when we were at Northwestern for the game is I miss the feeling of like chasing a win, like the adrenaline rush you get before a game, or like
You will
during a game. Like
never
I'm never gonna feel that again. Like I don't know
know.
what, and unless I coach, I think, which I think I just need to do that. I don't know. I will never get that feeling of we're gonna like, are we gonna win this game? Or I hope we win this game. Oh, this is such a close game. It's going into overtime. Like you just don't get that feeling of I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but I will never get that rush or that adrenaline or that chase. I don't know how I'll fulfill that. But that's like the weirdest thing. Like I want to feel that feeling, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. If you know what I'm talking about, then you get it. And I think that's been or gonna be hard for me now that we're done playing. So yeah, I think those are two of my biggest things is just like not chasing that feeling of winning, and like being better and just I don't know. It's very weird. I don't know how else to say it other than it's very weird. It was so weird. We were at Northwestern watching the game, and that was so weird. I think it finally like hit me that we're done, and now we're just sit here and watch. We have no control over like what's happening in the game. I like wanted to go to the sideline and get in their huddle and be like, "This is what I think, if you care or not." But
This is
um,
me if you even care.
yeah, um, yeah, it's weird. I don't know how else to describe it other than it's a very weird. But it is. I agree. It's something that's not talked about enough. The identity, and the purpose after playing at such a high level, because people do have that issue. Like, what my identity this whole time has been a college athlete. Like, I was a women's cross player. And I think that's something that the media is trying to like work on more now is we're more than just a women's lacrosse player. We're more than just a female athlete. And so finding those hobbies, finding those passions that you have, whether it's like it could be something so small. If you're passionate about it, like that is awesome. Like
Hang on to
just
it.
yeah, take
Hang on to
advantage
it.
of
Do
it.
something with it because when you like what you're doing, it makes things a lot easier. So if you
Mhm.
have something that you look forward to every day or every other day, whatever it is, it helps, makes it 10 times
Yeah.
easier. But although this sounded sad and kind of depressing, I think we're both enjoying post grad life.
Yeah.
So
This
as much
podcast
as it's a
also
little,
helps, keeps us involved.
oh
It's like
yeah,
Meg said it's a mandatory phone call that we have to have. I thought it
I
was
know.
fun.
I was talking to Meg. I was like, it's like I have a mandatory phone call with you every week. But I enjoy it. It's something to look forward to. And another piece of this that I think would be something to talk about, actually, I want to save that for the future. Never mind. Change my
Okay.
mind.
Let's go to the next question. We'll try and keep these a little bit quicker, but that one was a little detailed.
Mhm.
What was your favorite place to play at for college lacrosse besides the Dome? Did you guys have any superstitions before the game?
My favorite place to play besides the Dome.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I should have read that before.
I can go.
Go ahead.
Honestly, as much as I hated playing them and playing there, I do love the Northwestern field outside on the water. I think if I went there, that would be so sick. Like a beautiful day outside. Not trying to like plug them. But I do think that would be awesome. You can see the Chicago skyline. I don't know, I feel like I talk about it all the time. I'm also trying to think of like where else we played. I love Georgetown. Georgetown
Georgetown's cool.
might be tied for first for me. I love the feeling of like how their entire campus surrounds the field being like enclosed. It's a very like cozy feeling. I'm trying to think where else.
Florida has a beautiful field. Their
Yeah.
field is pristine, nice to play
Mhm.
on. When you play at night, I would hate to play there I hate hot weather, so I would
Mhm.
hate
Oh my
to be
god.
there during the day, but I think they have a really pretty facility. I think even though we've never played on it, I think UVA has like a cool
Mhm.
setup for their games
Mhm.
on their grass field. And uh, I haven't been to Denver either, or Colorado, but either of those fields I'm sure is
Yeah.
so cool to play at.
I'm trying to think of like who we have played. I don't really remember. Um,
Yeah.
Especially like teams that we played in the tournament, like at different schools. Princeton was kind of cool.
Yeah, Princeton was cool. Very like city vibe.
Yeah. Um, Maryland is just like a football stadium if you're in the football stadium.
It's always cool to play in a football stadium too. I think just anywhere you go.
Yeah. Um, Duke is
Oh,
gorgeous. I wouldn't say it's like my
yeah.
favorite. I don't not like it, but um, North Carolina, yeah.
Theirs is
Loyola,
cool
I
too.
liked playing at Loyola.
Yeah, they have a good
Um,
field.
Louisville is like the industrial revolution. You have trains, planes, cars, everything you can imagine going on right next to the
Their
field.
football stadium's cool too though.
Oh, I bet Clemson is so nice.
I was just gonna say that I'm a little jealous that we didn't get to play at Clemson's new facility, but that looks beautiful. So that would probably be the winner for me if I ever was there. But yeah, there's a lot of cool places to go, and anytime you play away, it's nice to just kind of see the different. If you ever visited the
Hmm.
schools, it's nice to see everything.
Yeah. Next question. Oh, also with that question, did you guys have any superstitions before games? I was trying to think about that earlier when I saw that question come through. I think my first few years I might have. I think I wore like the same socks just because those were the ones I liked. I wore the same socks. I don't really have anything that stands out to me. I like to eat sort of the same things depending on what time the game is. If it's early in the morning, I'm eating a bagel sandwich. If it's a later game, I'm having a sub. Um,
Jersey Mike's.
yeah, Jersey Mike's number 7, Mike's Way. Toppings depend on if I'm getting it fresh or if I'm ordering it and it has to sit around. But I then one thing that sort of made me superstitious a little bit. I hope no one listening to this is very superstitious. I mean, if you are, then I guess you're not changing anything. But I wore the same jersey, freshman and sports bra. I wore the same jersey and sports bra, freshman, sophomore, then junior year until randomly Thursday game at the end of the season. I decided I'm going to wear a different sports bra. I wore, I'm pretty sure, like Ella Simpkins' orange Nike sports bra. I have no idea why. And I wore a new jersey, a fresh new jersey. Also don't know why I did that. And then I tore my ACL. So it didn't make me that superstitious afterwards. I still changed a few things up. I definitely like questioned it at first, but I didn't want to be that crazy. So what about you, Meg?
Yeah, I was definitely superstitious about what I wore. Like I always, so I did like like the socks on the wrong feet, so like the L and the R were on the opposite,
Oh my
and I wore
God.
the same, yeah, and I wore the same pair every single game, even if they were like falling apart, I would wear them. I was like the same way with my cleats. I hated parting way with my cleats. You should have seen. I wonder if I have pictures.
Oh
I'll
my
probably find
gosh.
them. I had like my cleats taped together for what we were like in the ACC tournament, and my cleats were like literally falling apart, and I was like, I don't want to change them, so I
Yeah, we
taped
gotta
them
find a
together
picture.
basically. I know,
She
and I would do
also
that with
would
every
never take them off. Like, not only did you wear
yeah.
these same pair of cleats for so long, you would never take them off, so they smelled bad. I'm sorry, and you'd wear them in the house, and you'd leave them outside your room because they smelled bad.
Yeah, I was gonna put them in my room,
Okay, well,
but
outside your room is the living room. Anyways.
but yeah, no, I kept them on. I don't know, but I was very superstitious about my cleats. Whenever I changed them, I would like freak out about it. But it was necessary for safety purposes at that point.
Clearly it worked.
And then
Purposes.
oh well, yeah, because I can't have my foot falling out of my cleat when I'm running. But and then I'd eat a clementine before the game, any game, anytime, any place. And we would have clementines in the locker room with like a bunch of other snacks, so it was easy to get. And then at
Mhm.
halftime, I'd eat one sour gummy worm, the blue and red one or blue and pink one, and that was really it. And then I, did everything else on like a routine almost, but that wasn't like what I was like superstitious about.
Yeah, Meg and I, when we would room at away trips, the game could be at noon, the game could be at 6 p.m., the game could be at 8 p.m. Actually, that might be a stretch. You might have it a little bit more. But I knew if I was going down to breakfast or lunch, Meg's not coming, and I'm bringing her back a clementine because that's all she's going to eat before the game. I don't know how, but clearly it worked. So you're weird.
Well, there was justification with it. Like if it was an earlier in the day game, I wouldn't eat, but if we had like a night game, I'd have like a sandwich or something throughout the day. But
Thank
yeah,
God.
no, morning games and stuff, I like wouldn't eat before it. Not sure why. It's like how I've always been, but yeah, Meg would just go get breakfast and I'd get to sleep. So,
Eating like
win-win.
4 pancakes, 5 eggs, bacon, and
Yeah.
Meg's eating a clementine.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Let's see. What was it like balancing schoolwork and a Division One sport at the same time? Um, we can keep this one a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
For us at least, we had an academic advisor, academic coordinator, Jason. He is literally the best. He's saved me so many times. And I probably
Shout
wouldn't have
out Jason.
graduated without him. So shout out Jason. You are the GOAT. A lot
Goated.
of times I'd walk into his office and cry because I don't know, I didn't have like a summer internship or something or didn't know what I wanted to study. That's literally I don't know why I was so worked up over that. But he um was literally a backbone for us. That man does so much thing for our program. He also works with football, so it's not like he just has all the time in the
Busy
world to help
dude.
us.
Busy dude.
Um, but yeah, so basically he helps you build your schedule, figure out what classes you're going to take around practice and lift and whatnot. So he was very helpful and a crucial piece in that as well. At Syracuse, you have free tutors. So if you need a tutor, get one before it's too late and before you're falling behind the class.
Yeah, I agree with Meg. Balancing it's not really as daunting as like people kind of make it out to be.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
also it's like as long as you kind of put effort into, professors see that. Like if you're someone who doesn't show up for class, which if you're an athlete, you have to show up for class, um, for athletic purposes as well. But if you're someone who doesn't show up for class, you don't submit your assignments and stuff like that, and then you're like, oh, like why am I failing this class? Well, there's that. So it's kind of you got to put the effort in. You got to show up. You got to do the work, just like you would do with sports. So you're kind of already working with that mindset, I'd say. But yeah, it's not anything that's really going to be, unless it also depends on what you're doing too. So if you're going
Yeah.
to be like the medical route, I know that's a crazy schedule. And then other schools have like architecture programs, stuff like that. Anything that's like, or engineering even, there's just different things like that you choose to do that you know it's going to be hard. But if you're choosing those routes anyways, you have that bit of dedication. So it's very manageable. And professors are normally very agreeable with you. They want to help you. No one really wants to see you fail, right? So everyone really works together. And as long as you're prompt with things, you do things early, give them heads up, they're mostly respectful, I'd say, when it
Yeah,
comes
you
to
sort of
everything.
just figure it out. You don't really have a choice but to figure it out. There's people there to help you figure it out, but like I mentioned earlier, you get into a routine and you sort of just know, all right, this is my block that I have to study and get ready, do homework, and then you also just have priorities. So you just figure it out.
And you will figure it out, and people will help you, and you have teammates that are also going through the same thing and people who have been in your shoes. So there's always people to talk to, there's always resources. So you won't feel alone when you're there. Trust us. But with that, we'll wrap up. We have some other questions too, but we will get into those in later episodes. And just before we go, I think we're really excited about this podcast and to see the feedback that we've received from people who've reached out or left comments about the podcast. We just want to say thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate it. We hope you join us for the rest of the journey throughout this season as we get deeper and deeper into March, April, and May. So we just want to give you guys a big thank you. We really appreciate it.
Yes. It was very nice of the people that reached out. People that I would not expect to, or I don't know, it was very nice. It was very just reassuring because we had high hopes for this podcast. We're very excited, like Meg said. So it's just nice to hear how that people reached or people that listened. Yeah, we are now on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. Spotify and YouTube obviously has a video. Apple Music is just the audio. And there's also, you can ask questions on the YouTube. You can ask questions on Spotify. Not too sure about Apple Music, if you can or not. I think it might be more of like a review.
Yeah. But then there's also the questions link too, which would be probably easier for you.
Yep. So we just added the questions link in our bio on the Instagram. So if you don't follow that, follow it. Subscribe, follow us, everything. You know the deal. But yeah, we're very excited. And with that being said, feel free to make sure to ask us. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to episode 1, week 1 of the Meg Show, and we will see you guys next week.